Imagine, just for a second, a world where the physical boundaries that have defined us for millennia suddenly become, well, kind of optional. Just a year ago, in the dark days of the 2025 slump, critics were practically writing the obituary for virtual reality. But 2026? Wow. 2026 is an explosive reality. We're standing at this massive inflection point, a moment where the line between what's real and what's rendered is fundamentally blurring. Today, we're going to look at the undeniable data behind this shift and see exactly how it's reshaping our world.
Okay, to understand where we are right now, we really have to look back at the absolute chaos of 2025. You probably remember the RAM-pocalypse, that insane global memory shortage driven by the rapid expansion of AI. Try buying a graphics card back then. Actually, scratch that, don't even try, it was literally impossible. That shortage, along with delayed product launches and just general economic weirdness, caused the headset market to contract by roughly 12%. It was your classic trough of disillusionment. It gave the skeptics all the ammo they needed to doubt VR. But, as you'll see, that contraction was basically just a tightly coiled spring.
All right, let's dive into this because here is the shocking plot twist. As those delayed hardware cycles finally resumed and all that pent-up demand got unleashed into a much more mature market, we didn't just see a slight recovery, we are witnessing an explosive 87% rebound in headset shipments this year. 87%! And this isn't just early adopters buying the next shiny toy anymore. This massive volume is being driven by fundamentally new use cases that are totally institutionalizing the technology.
Which brings us to Section 1, the corporate spatial shift and enterprise VR adoption.
The biggest misconception about VR is that it's just a gaming novelty. We absolutely need to ditch that narrative because the undeniable economic reality driving this 2026 rebound is coming straight from the corporate world. The numbers here are visually shocking. A staggering 91% of businesses are currently integrating or actively planning to adopt AR and VR. 91%, that's practically everyone. This isn't some experimental phase anymore. It's a strategic necessity across the Fortune 500. In fact, enterprise adoption is projected to drive 60% of total VR industry revenue by 2030. They've realized this tech solves their most expensive challenges.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why these massive companies are rushing in. The ROI statistics are wild. Boeing, they're seeing a 75% reduction in training time for complex assemblies. Airbus is performing maintenance tasks 25% faster. But the absolute standout here is Delta Airlines. By using VR, they transform their technician training, taking daily proficiencies checks from 3 a day to 150 a day. That is a 5,000% increase in throughput. No way around it, these aren't marginal gains, they're complete operational transformations.
Let's elevate this beyond just corporate efficiency, though. Moving to Section 2, prescribing virtual reality, digital therapeutics. We really need to talk about the profound human impact of spatial computing. The healthcare sector has actually emerged as the fastest growing vertical for VR, projected to grow at a nearly 34% compound annual rate. We're witnessing the birth of true digital therapeutics. Think about traditional medicine for a second. We stare at flat screens to study 3D molecules, and we prescribe heavy pharmaceuticals like opioids for physical pain. Well, VR is changing that baseline. Instead of a flat screen, researchers put on a headset and literally walk around room-sized molecular models. And instead of just relying on painkillers, patients use highly immersive VR distraction therapy.
I really want this number to sink in. 50%. Clinical studies are showing that VR distraction therapy is reducing perceived physical pain in patients by up to 50%. It is literally overriding the brain's pain signals. It's wild. And this isn't just about a better patient experience, it's creating measurable healthcare economics with the potential for $200,000 in monthly medication savings per facility just by cutting down reliance on traditional pain meds.
The stats across the medical field are nothing short of a miracle. Consider this. Bringing a new drug to market usually costs around $2.6 billion and takes 10 to 15 years. But researchers using VR to study protein folding are finding potential drug binding sites 30% faster. That compounds into massive savings. On top of that, surgeons trained in VR make 40% fewer mistakes. In pharma manufacturing, where human error causes 80% of quality issues, VR cleanroom training drops operator errors by 70%. Oh, and it completely eradicates contamination risk while they learn. VR is no longer just training. It's a critical tool for saving lives and accelerating billion-dollar discoveries.
So we see why doctors and businesses are all in, but let's pivot to Section 3, the pursuit of presence, consumer psychology.
Why are millions of everyday people increasingly choosing to spend hours in their virtual lives over their real ones? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the core psychological driver here, a concept called presence. Presence is that deeply psychological sensation where your brain is genuinely tricked into believing you're situated in a virtual space. It completely overrides your physical environment. You just can't get this feeling from a smartphone or TV. The pursuit of this pure presence is exactly why spatial social networks like VR chat are absolutely exploding in popularity. People are craving connection and immersion that reality sometimes struggles to provide.
And presence isn't just about hanging out with friends. It fundamentally alters human psychology and how we process information. Look at this. Industry studies show that when users are fully immersed without physical distractions, they are almost 4 times more emotionally connected to the content compared to regular e-learning. And their focus? 4 times higher. People literally put their phones down and exist entirely in the moment. In a world completely saturated with notifications, the digital spatial world is commanding our absolute undivided attention.
Now, gaming definitely sparked the fire. And sure, it still leads with 70% of usage, but daily habits are extending way beyond that. 42% of users are watching films and TV in their own personal virtual IMAX theaters. 35% are moving their daily workouts completely into VR. 22% are doing creative stuff like 3D painting or producing music. Users aren't just dipping their toes in, they're actively migrating their physical routines into these optimized spatial environments.
Which brings us to a somewhat profound, maybe even existential descent in Section 4, when reality starts to lose, the future of VR.
So the crucial point we have to forecast is this smartphone replacement potential. We've talked about the convergence of AI, 5G, cloud rendering, and spatial computing. All of this is allowing the bulky headsets of the past to shrink down into lightweight smart glasses. As these devices become basically indistinguishable from normal eyewear, they won't just supplement your phone, they'll replace it. They will become the primary, always-on interface for your entire digital life, seamlessly overlaying context and connection, and effectively erasing the line between physical and digital. Think about the trajectory we've just mapped out together. If the virtual world offers you a 50% reduction in physical pain, if it gives you perfectly safe, zero-risk training environments, if it accelerates your learning and boosts emotional connection by 400%, and lets you instantly connect with anyone on the planet with the true feeling of being right next to them, well, the physical world, with all its friction, inefficiencies, and pain, begins to look, quite honestly, a little outdated by comparison. Which leaves us with this final, stark, and lingering thought for 2026 and beyond. When our rendered worlds become more efficient, more comfortable, and more deeply engaging than the physical world around us, what happens when reality starts to lose? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I hope this deep dive gave you a much clearer picture of exactly why spatial computing is having such a massive moment. Stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.